and welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today I'm so excited to be introducing our new set Superstar and its coordinating dies. We're also going to be making 3 cards from start to finish with 3 different ways of creating a starry or galaxy type background and an awesome magic iris too. So let's go ahead and check this set out. First up, we have this super cute sitting mouse and an awesome telescope for him to look through. We have a speech bubble as well, and then of course some stars for him to look through that telescope at. So we've got a little cluster of 3 stars, a larger star, and a really cute little tiny shooting star. And then we have some small stars that are individual, and then some constellations, the star-shaped constellation, and a little shooting star thing for the bigger star as well, and some more styles of constellations. This set is great to combine with Upon a Star as well for even more constellations. We have a solid heart and a solid star, and we also have these cute little smiley faces that fit perfectly inside that star. There are some phrases that also fit perfectly inside the speech bubble. We have You Shine, Wow, and Make a Wish. And then this set is filled with these amazing mix and match style sentiments. So we have I Look Up to You. We also have I Thank My Lucky Stars for You. We have Hava, and then birthday or day, and you can fill that in with stellar that I'll show you in a second. We also have URA or your. And then we have my favorite, there are stars, and then there are, and you'll stamp superstars, and then you can write that's you underneath, which I think is super cute. We also have the phrases mom and dad, so you can say you are a star, mom. And these are those superstars and stellars and all those phrases, and they are in the offset saying style, which means we have open lines and solid lines that you can use on their own or mix and match together. So we have super, we have stars and star, and then we also have stellar. There is an exclamation point in the offset sayings style, and then we also have an exclamation point that's teeny tiny for the smaller phrases, and I love the mix and match of these fonts. So here I wanted to show you some fun ways to use the offset style words in this set. So I've stamped out stellar a bunch of times, and one of my favorite ways to do it is to just use a marker and just color them in nice and plain like we have here. If you want to step it up a little bit, you can do a bit of a little gradient or ombre style. So we're going to have a little darker color at the bottom, and then we're going to blend that out with a lighter marker, and that gives it this really, really cool blended look that's really, really pretty. Another really fun way to do this is in rainbow order. So I picked out markers from pink all the way through purple, and I'm going to color in each letter. You could also do this with the color palette from your card. So if you had like mint, gray, and navy, you could repeat those 3 colors over and over again and have this really awesome colorful sentiment. Now, of course, we have those solid letters as well. So here I'm going to stamp out in the new Kiddie Pool ink, and you can see how it'd be really cute just stamped out as a solid letter. But if you overlay it with the outline, it gives it this really, really cool kind of offset look. And isn't that amazing? Kind of fills the letters in for you, and it looks super, super bold. Another way that I like to do this is to mix and match a really light color and a really dark color. So here we're stamping in butter, which is a really light yellow, and then we're going to go ahead and take out some Hippo ink, which is a gray, and I'm going to stamp these really offset from each other, and you can see it makes the letters almost look like they're glowing, and it's a really, really cool look. So you can layer them right on top of each other, slightly offset or very offset for lots of different looks. Next up, we're going to be using our Copic markers to color in these images. And that little mouse is so cute, and he is a perfect match for the mice in Mice on Ice and for the mice in Dandy Day. So you can mix and match him with all of those, and I love that now we have all these mice in different positions, so you can create really cool cards by combining your stamp sets. So we're going to add a little color to him and a little rosy cheeks, and then we're going to color in the telescope. And using these BV markers has become my favorite way to color this telescope in. It kind of has the feel of metal, sort of, but it's more colorful, which is really fun. And then we're going to add some warm grays for the accents on the telescope, and a little warm gray just to give that speech bubble there a little shadow. Now I love using these Y15, Y11 combo here to color in the stars. I think it's really, really pretty, and it just gives it kind of like a glow. These are the coordinating ties, which you can go ahead and bend apart at the tabs or use your wire snips to separate. We're going to take those dies and line them up with our stamped images, hold them in place with some low tack tape. I'm using Post-it note tape here. We'll run it through the die cut machine, and then we'll have these beautifully cut out images. Here is a look at all of the images in the set. I love how those constellations look cut out. They're so delicate and so pretty. And I wanted to show you another way to stamp and color these. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually stamp out that constellation in sunflower ink, which is this really nice bold yellow. And this is going to give the constellation a little bit of a softer look, which is going to match our first card. So we're going to stamp that out and then use those same Y13, Y11 markers or Y15, Y11, anything like that will work, just for a little bit of shading in there. And you can see, look how pretty that looks. It's so delicate, so gorgeous for filling up a sky. I absolutely love it. And when you cut it out with a coordinating die, it looks even more amazing. Isn't that beautiful? So we're going to be using that on this next card we're going to create now. First up, we're starting off with some fog cardstock, which I love because it's a really light gray. It's really subtle, but it adds a lot to a card. And we're going to layer that onto our card base. Then we're going to take a scalloped rectangle die and we're going to cut some of this awesome sparkle cardstock, and I love how pretty and glittery it is, and it's going to match that star that we just stamped. Now to create our starry sky for this card, we're going to do the easiest possible method, and that's using some pattern paper. So we've die cut this pattern paper from the Hello Sunshine Remix collection, and we're going to cut that with a stitched rectangle die, and we're going to layer that right on top of that sparkle cardstock. Then we're going to add some foam squares to that entire panel, and we're going to layer that onto our fog cardstock base. You can see just how pretty that's looking already. Right at this moment is when I realized that I made a mistake because I had wanted to stamp on that beautiful starry paper. So I thought, okay, I'm going to put this in my Misty and see what happens. I inked it up with some Hippo ink, and thank goodness it actually worked. I pressed down really, really well and it worked. If it hadn't, I would have gone ahead and just, used a new piece of pattern paper. Now here I've used that same size stitched rectangle to cut some white cardstock, and then we're going to cut that with a puffy cloud border die so that we have the stitching all of the way around. And we'll put that in the Misty as well, and we're going to finish up our phrase, which is my favorite from the set. So we're going to say there are stars, and then we'll say, and then there are superstars. So we're stamping out in the Hippo ink again. But this time I want to have a bit of that glow like we did earlier with our offset letters. So I'm going to take those solid letters here and just line those right up against each other, pick them up with my block, and we're going to stamp with that butter ink. And I'm going to purposely do it so that it's really offset so that those letters look like they're glowing. And it's such a cool look, especially with the word superstars. So check this out. Look how much it adds to that. It just makes it that extra special touch. So we're going to add some foam squares to the back of that cloud and then layer that onto our starry sky. Then we can start to put all of our characters on there. So I'm going to add my mouse and my telescope onto that cloud, and then we're going to add the stars and constellations into the sky so we can see what he's looking at. And so see, we'll just kind of layer those around, just adding those on with some tape runner, some nice flat adhesive. And once we add that last star, this card is all done. And one of the things that I love about this card was how quick and easy it was to make and how pretty that sparkly cardstock looks in the background. And so here you'll see that I have a whole nother card that I've made with this style, and I just love it. You could do it as a thank you card, as a birthday card, as the thinking of you card. It's just so super cute and fun. Now that we've created a more simple starry background using pattern paper, we're going to get inky. So we're going to take out a bunch of distress ink here, and we're recreating a background that Audrey did that was so pretty that I had to write and say, oh my goodness, what colors did she use? So she used Chip Sapphire, Blueprint Sketch, Squeeze Lemonade, Picked Raspberry, and Dusty Concord. And so we're using distress ink here, and we're inking on to some watercolor cardstock. And you'll see that I'm just kind of creating random little patches of color of the purple, pink, yellow, and that brighter blue color. And it's going to look really messy. I always get really nervous during these backgrounds because I'm like, I don't know if this looks good. But it's okay, it's going to be all right. So we added some of that darker blue color to kind of fill in the differences. And now this was the trick she did. She switched to the oxide inks, and we're using black soot here, and we're just covering it up. Then we're going back to those distress ink brighter colors and building them up. So you'll see here I can add that purple on, and the way it reacts with that oxide ink, with the two different styles of ink, looks really cool. It kind of like sits on top of it, and it looks really bold. So we're going to go back through all those colors. Look at that pink, it's just brightening up. We'll do the pink, the yellow, the bright blue, the purple, just kind of brightening up those colors. At this point, it was still looking just so I wasn't quite sure about it, but I thought, well, let's try something. So I decided to splatter a bunch of water on there. And when Audrey did this, she had really big splatters. So I made sure that big droplets came out, and then I would just pick it up with my paper towel. And those big droplets are already starting to make it look a little bit more interesting. So every time I would spray, pick up the excess water, and you'll see it's taking away that color in a way that looks really, really cool. Then to add to the galaxy effect, I took out a box here to protect my work surface, and here I have some Copic white paint, but some acrylic paint would do, and an old toothbrush. So I've put the ink on the toothbrush, and I'm just flicking that toothbrush, and how beautiful is that? It creates stars all over the sky, and all of a sudden this background is starting to look okay. I'm like, all right, I'm starting to like this. It's looking pretty cool. So here we've got all of those splatters on there. And then just to add a little bit more interest, we're going to do some splatters with the paintbrush, which will be kind of like bigger dots instead of the spray. So we're going to do that in gold and also in that same white. So we're going to pick up some of that watercolor paint and then just tap that paintbrush and let those little stars go all over. So now we've got some gold in there and then a little bit of white as well. You can see there I'm just kind of adding a little bit of water so that it can nice and spray all over. And this background is starting to look really, really cool. I went ahead and set this background aside to dry a bit, and once it dried, we're going to go ahead and attach it to a standard size black note card here. We've got 5.5 by 4.25, and we're just going to be layering that right onto that card base with some tape runner. Then we're going to take that same size outside in stitched rectangle that we cut that whole galaxy background with, and we're going to cut some white cardstock and once again take out that puffy cloud border, which is the perfect thing for this stamp set, and we're going to layer that right on top. And you can see just how pretty this is looking. I really like how that pink peeks out the bottom. Now for some clouds, we're actually going to be taking a meadow backdrop, and these guys can be clouds or shrubs, but they're the perfect clouds for this because they're teeny tiny and that little detail that they have is just so pretty. So we're going to add some foam squares to those and layer those into our clouds, and that's going to be the place where our mouse and our telescope from Superstar are going to sit. To go along with our black note card and our white clouds, we're going to do some white heat embossing. So we're going to take our anti-static powder tool and cover that black cardstock there to make sure that our powder is only going to stick to our clear embossing ink. And then we're going to create a phrase where we can mix and match from this set, and it's going to say, "I thank my lucky stars for you," but the stars is going to be that outline style. So we're going to line that up in the MISTI and pick it up with the tool, and then we can ink it up with some clear embossing ink and stamp that down. I always like to lightly tap it. Megan from the design team taught me this trick, and that makes sure that not too much of the ink goes on there. And then we can sprinkle some white heat embossing powder on and then heat it up with the heat tool. And you can see how cool that's looking already. But what Audrey did to fill in those letters is amazing. So she took out some gold watercolor paint, or you could use a gold marker as well. And so we're just going to go ahead and kind of toss that off to the side, and we're going to fill in that outline with the gold paint. And this is going to look so pretty, and it'll pick up those gold specks that we did onto that galaxy background. I would have never thought of doing this, and it's such a cool look, and she did this with some of the stars in this set too. So I'm someone who's sometimes can't stay inside the lines. So to help myself out a little bit with the watercolor, I went ahead and stamped in some VersaFine ink. And VersaFine is a pigment ink, which means it's really sticky. And right now I'm sprinkling on some clear heat embossing powder, and we're going to heat that up. And what's going to happen is now we're going to have that raised embossed surface, and that's going to help keep my watercolor paint inside the lines. So if you're someone like me that has trouble keeping watercolor inside the lines, embossing with clear embossing is really, really helpful. So I went ahead and did that and then colored in these stars, and now we have the gold to match the gold splatters and then the gold that we've colored in the word stars with. So we're going to die cut that with a sentiment banner die. We'll run that through the die cut machine, and then we can go ahead and start to layer this on the card. So I added some foam squares to the sentiment, and then for the stars, we're going to add those on with some flat tape runner. So we're going to add the little awesome shooting star thing right there, and then we're going to layer the sentiment on top, and then add some more stars all the way around it. We're going to keep adding those tiny little stars into the sky to fill it all up, and I had so much fun making this. I'm so glad that we wrote Audrey and asked her how she created this background because it was such a blast to do. And I just think those bright colors in the background of this galaxy sky are just gorgeous. Now that we've gone really, really inky, we've also done pattern paper as our sky background. We're going to do something a little bit more simple for the background, but then we're going to create a magic iris, which is really cool. So we're going to be using the Magic Iris add-on, and we're going to cut some blue Jay cardstock. We're going to take some black soot distress ink and we're just going to go lightly around the edges of this blue Jay cardstock. And you're going to see as we do this, it starts to make it almost look like it's an ink blended background, even though it really isn't. It's actually just a little bit of black ink on some blue cardstock. So we're just going to layer that all around the edges, really messy, really, really quick. And then to create more of that starry background, we're going to add some white paint. So you could do white acrylic paint. I just have this Copic white stuff here. We're going to pick up some of that paint and then we'll add a little bit of water to kind of water it down. And then we can take our paintbrush and tap that paintbrush to create stars around this background. So this background took me, I think, about 3 minutes to create, and it's so cool and so amazing. So I love that you can get really inky if you're in the mood. If you want to do a little bit inking, you could do something like this, or if you needed to make a quick card, you could use that beautiful pattern paper. But look how pretty that is. So we're going to set that aside to dry, and we're going to start making our magic iris. Now, if you've never made a magic iris before, make sure to check out our intro to magic iris video. We'll link it in the description below. We're going to start off by die cutting 3 of those rings. Then out of one of those rings, we're going to take our flux capacitor looking piece and we're going to line that up in the center, hold it in place with some low tack tape, and we'll run that through the die cut machine, and that's going to give us a ring with this awesome kind of notch detail and those little slots in it as well. We're also going to die cut 3 of our sausage pieces and 3 of our stabilizer pieces. We're going to die cut the tab that's included in the add-on out of that same blue Jay cardstock we did earlier, and we're going to die cut the main tab as well from some white cardstock. We've been making a bunch of magic irises lately in videos, and so in this one, I wanted to show you some troubleshooting tips. And here's a nice quick one. So you'll see when we cut that flux capacitor piece, see how pretty that stitching looks on the front side where we die cut it, and then on the back it's not quite as finished. You want to be looking at the front side where your stitching looks really, really nice and pretty. And that's the side that we're going to then insert our sausages. So we're going to put the sausage in those little slot areas, and we're going to make sure that it's all the way towards the outside part of the ring. And so we'll do that with all 3 of them. So you'll see I'm going to make sure it's all the way towards the outside. When we do that, you'll notice that the curve of the sausage piece lines up with the curve of the inner circle. Now you want to make sure that you use 3/16 of an inch glue dots. These are the mini glue dots. You can't use tape runner or liquid adhesive. It won't work quite right. So you definitely want to have the 3/16 of an inch size glue dots. And then we're going to make sure that our pieces are nice and lined up. And the best way to do that is to make sure that they're all the way towards that outside edge. Then we can take one of our plain rings here and attach that right on top of those glue dots and flip the whole thing over. Then we're going to add some tape runner right where those brackets are, and we're going to be adding that from the inside to the outside and then attaching those stabilizer pieces. Those stabilizer pieces have a curved edge that's going to line up with the curved edge of the inside of that ring, so it should be nice and easy to line up, and then we're going to flip that right back over. Then we'll work on attaching the tab. So to know where to place the tab, we're going to pick one of those stabilizers, anyone works, and we're going to point it towards ourselves, point it towards your body. Then you're going to take your tab, and that tab is going to go directly to the right of that stabilizer. So we're going to add some adhesive there, a little bit less than halfway down the tab, and we're going to line that up with the stabilizer, and they're going to meet right there forming that V. You'll also notice that there's a curve on that tab piece that's also going to line up with that inner curve of the ring. So we're going to press that down and make sure it's nice and secure. Next, we're going to take that 3rd ring and we're going to lay it right on top. It's just loose. There's no adhesive or anything. And then we're going to put some tape runner on all 3 of our stabilizers and we're going to lightly hug them around. When they hug around, you're going to notice that they don't go all the way to the inside edge. That's good. That's what you want to see, and that's how you'll know that they're lightly hugged around. If it's too tight, then your magic iris just won't move at all. Now, every once in a while, you may have a magic iris that doesn't quite close in the center, and I wanted to show you why that is. And it has to do with the angle of the stabilizer. So this is why I really, really like to use dot runners, so you can pick them up and move them. So sometimes your stabilizer might be just a little bit too far in towards the tab, so the tab can't move all of the way. So here, I'm going to make this very exaggerated so you can see, but I'm going to make sure that my magic iris is closed all of the way, and then I'm going to take that stabilizer and kind of move it and put it at a bit of an angle so that my tab can move all the way where it needs to make sure it's completely closed. So hopefully that makes sense. If you're ever not closing, that's why. So use dot runner on your stabilizers so that you can move them and change them. If that magic iris isn't closing all of the way, just take that stabilizer and angle it just a little bit. Make sure that your tab can move all of the way so that it's nice and closed. Once you get the hang of putting these together, that usually doesn't happen. Your magic iris is going to close all of the way, but if for some reason you ever have that little gap, that angling of the stabilizer is the perfect trick. Now right there, we added on that tab that comes from the add-on, and we just trimmed off any of the excess of that white tab. So now we've got that blue tab that has that really unique look. We're going to add some tape runner all over that ring, and we're going to line it up with our cover plate here. So we're going to make sure that the circle lines up and that the edge of that tab is completely flush with the edge of that stitched rectangle. Then we're going to press that down, make sure it's nice and secure, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that black soot ink just to make sure that it blends in with that background just a little bit better. Next, we're going to flip the whole thing over and add our foam squares. And I just put 3 along the top and the bottom. That's all you need. And that's going to make sure that we don't have any foam squares in the way of that tab that's going to be moving. I've also taken a 5.5 by 4.25 card base out of that same blue Jay Cardstock, and we're going to do that same treatment there with the black soot distress ink, just adding it all the way around once again so everything coordinates. We're also going to be die cutting with the largest outside in stitched rectangle, some white cardstock, and we're going to layer that onto the card base. I went ahead and added some tape runner to the 3 stabilizers on the back of the magic iris, but at this point I realized I needed to decorate the card base just a little bit more. So I went ahead and die cut that same magic iris add-on just out of some scrap cardstock, and so this is going to be a guide as to where we're going to be placing our stars. So this is the How You Bean Star add-on, and it's a really fun little companion to this Superstar stamp set. So I'm just going to line that cover plate up on there and then just use it as a guide as to where I want my stars to go. You'll see I'm kind of playing around with the placement because I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted it to look. And so I was able to use that as a guide, and now that's in perfect placement. And then I can go ahead and take my cover plate and add that onto my card base. And you're going to see how pretty those stars look through that magic iris. Now, as we've done in all 3 of these cards, we've had our fun starry background that we've created in 3 different ways, and we're also going to go ahead and add some puffy cloud borders to the bottom. So we're going to die cut that same cover plate piece so that we have that same stitching all the way around with our puffy cloud borders, and then we're going to do it with another style of the puffy cloud so that we can layer both of those together. Next up, we're going to be taking the How You Bean stamp set out, and we're recreating an incredible card by Tammy today, and I loved her idea of combining all these different sets. So this is our How You Bean stamp set, which is one of my favorites, even though it came out a long time ago. And we want to die cut it with the cover plate, but I was trying to find the best way of how to figure out exactly how to cut this thing. So I'm using that scrap piece of paper there again, and kind of using it as a guide as to how we're going to line up that die. And I went ahead and used my pencil and traced the circle. Then I lifted up my cover plate and realized that that circle wasn't quite in the center, so I just took that piece there and just kind of shifted it just a little bit and drew another circle. And no one's ever going to see these messy circles, so that's okay. Once again, I lifted it up and that one was perfect. So I'm just going to take my pencil and just darken the edges of the one that's actually in the center of the jar. So it's a nice way to just give yourself a guide. You could also just eyeball it, but I really liked having that little guide and those pencil lines to help me. So now I can take that add-on die and just line it up with those pencil lines. And once it's in the right placement, I can hold it in place with some low tack tape and run it through the die cut machine. That's going to give me a die cut circle in the center of the jar that's going to line up perfectly with that awesome galaxy sky that we created earlier. We'll add some tape runner to the back of the jar and we can line that up over our magic iris. And so you can imagine that you could do this with so many of your stamps, just lining them up, drawing that circle, and then running it through the die cut machine, and you can layer it right over your magic iris, which is so cool. Then we're going to take those puffy clouds and kind of layer them over the jar so it looks like the jar is sitting in the clouds. And we're going to stamp out "You Are a Superstar" from the Superstar stamp set onto the other clouds and do a little bit of that gradient color with the markers. Our darkest yellow on the bottom, then medium, and then light right up at the top. And I just darkened it up a little bit more along the bottom, adding some foam squares to that whole cloud piece, and we can layer that on top. Now, right now, we're going to have some fun combining our mice. So we have our Superstar mice that we've already worked with, and also our How You Bean stars and How You Bean jar. And then now we're going to mix our Superstar mouse with our Dandy Day mouse and also with our Really High Five mouse. We're going to use that net from Butterfly Kisses too. So this is a really fun kind of shop your stash kind of thing where you can look through and see what other sets do I have with that cute style of mouse. I can mix and match them for a really cool card. So we're going to layer on the jar lid there from How You Bean, and then the mouse and the telescope from Superstar. There we have the Butterfly Kisses net and the mouse from Really High Five. This guy from Dandy Day is usually blowing on a dandelion, but in this case, we're going to have it look like he's kind of blowing on a star, and that star is floating out into the sky, and I think that's such a cute look. He's really fun to have him look like he's blowing out birthday candles as well. And then we're going to take a bunch of stars from the Superstar stamp set and fill in our sky with them with that nice bright yellow color that is also in our Superstar words. And you can see as we start to fill in the sky how cute this is looking. We're going to add one right here down by this mouse, almost like he's kind of standing on it, and then layer in the rest of the sky. Now, when I added all my stars, I had an extra one, and I thought, oh my gosh, how cute would it be if it was behind the tab? So we're going to go ahead and just hide that behind the tab so that there's a cute little surprise as you pull down the tab. It's a fun place to add a decoration, especially when you have an extra stamped and die cut image. And here you can see the finished card. How gorgeous is this? This idea by Tammy blew me away. I love the idea of using old favorite stamp sets with brand new interactive dies and mixing and matching all of these things to create really cool things. What else could we put in the jar? We could put hearts in there. We could stamp all sorts of cute things, flowers. Oh my goodness. So this idea is so much fun, and I can't wait to see if you guys create some really cool How You Bean Magic Iris cards. Next up, we have some absolutely stunning cards by the design team. And first up, we have this beautiful Magic Iris card by Elena. And I absolutely love that she used the Magic Iris as a way to reveal the rest of her sentiment. It's so cool, and that nice bold outline letter looks amazing in the Magic Iris. This card by Elena is so cute. I love how she used that die cut puffy star for the center. And this double slider surprise by Megan is amazing, especially as you pull it up, it continues the scene, and the sky up at the top is so beautiful. I love this card by Lynette. It's the cutest little scene, and that scalloped border is adorable. And then this sky that Tammy created is just gorgeous. I love those water spots and then the layers of die cuts and heat embossing. Elise got super creative, and I love how she used all of her stitched ABCs and some of the stars of the set to get a totally different look on her card. Nicole's Magic Iris is incredible, and I love how she used the cat from Keep On Swimming and the mouse from You're Just My Type to have them look like they're looking up at the stars, and then she finishes off that sentiment with that "That's You," which I think is so sweet. These layered star-shaped cards by Grace are the cutest things. I absolutely adore them, and I love how the rest of her sentiment is on the inside. And then here is a Magic Iris by Maureen, and I love how she mixed and matched all those mice, and she has the amazing sentiment on the inside. And how cool is the slider idea? That shooting star is perfect for the slide on over stamp set. It's so cute, and I love how it's just floating through the sky on Elise's card. I adore that purple glow coming from behind that gray grass on Elena's card. So stunning. And this card by Shari is so super cute. I love how she used that beautiful paper from the Hello Sunshine Remix collection. And this is that amazing background that inspired me to make mine by Audrey's. And oh my gosh, Audrey's just blows me away. I need to practice more to be just like her. And here's a card by Shari that we created in the Intro to Stencils video. And she used the stencil to make a glitter paste ground that's so cool with this stamp set. And then this is the Magic Iris card by Tammy that inspired us to make ours today. Oh my goodness, it's just so cute. I love it so much. In this card by Yanea, she created a stunning watercolor background. I love those imperfect edges and all of her splatters, just beautiful. And then here is a magic iris that we created with this set in the Intro to Magic Iris video, so you'll have to check that out. And here Melissa shows us that this is perfect for planners as well. She used our Oliver stitched ABCs and those cute little stars and words as part of her journaling that I absolutely adore. And then this card by Jen is so fun. I love that bright pink sky. It's really cool. And I just can't wait to see what you guys create with Superstar. It's one of my favorite new sets, so make sure to share it with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!